What's up, folks? David Soto Jr. here, and this is the David Soto Jr. podcast. What's up, folks? Welcome to episode 45 of the David Soto Jr. podcast. I am your host, David Soto Jr. And today, I don't have my co-host because he's sleeping next to his mommy. But today I want to talk about something. So what I've been working on is trying to, of course, I'm trying to make money as an entrepreneur, as an author, trying not to have to get a job, but that's not working. I'm getting a job. I've been interviewing, and I have already had 3 interviews with one company, and there's like at least 1 or 2 more. I really am feeling good about this position, about this job, and it's really going to provide some serious medical insurance, which is kind of the main goal. And income, yes, I'm looking for income, but I'm also looking for the first time in my life, really, I'm looking for medical insurance. But I'm still looking to publish books. I'm still looking to make a living as an author, even though it's not feasible right now, or it's not making a living right now. I'm not going to give up. I'm still going to work on it. One of those things that I want to do is, I published a short story, The Namesake of David Alonso. If you saw my last podcast, I talk about the story behind the story of the namesake David Alonso, which is something that is personally I have experienced or believe or gone through with naming my son David and my dad naming his son David. And so I took that little story and writing an entire book on it, but a little short excerpt of it I've published as a short story. And again, that's The Namesake David Alonso. That just published, that just launched, and nothing really. The 5 people that I asked to buy it bought it, and so that's it. Again, my best launch was the first book, and then after that everybody was like, whatever. So David Alonso launched. It was very lackluster. But the good news about that was it's time for me to move on to my next project. And that's what I'm getting to. My next project is a journal. I'm trying to figure out what to call it. I usually come up with titles first. I'm kind of tossing around with Just Before Bed. Maybe just call it JBB, because this is typically where I use this journal, was just before bed, when I would lay down and I would write all of this stuff in the journal. And then, and so I'm thinking that Just Before Bed journal, I was going to call it JBBJ, but I don't think maybe it's just me, but JBBJ, or maybe it's thinking JBB, Just Before Bed. I don't know about having the BJ as an acronym there. But the goal for this, and here's the thing, like, maybe people will buy it, maybe we'll buy it, maybe it'll bring some value to people. Maybe I'll make some money off of it. But to be honest, the reason I am doing this, the reason I'm creating this journal, is because I want it. Because I want this journal. And I haven't been doing my normal routine at night ever since You Know Who and I got back together. Things have just been just not chaos in a negative way, but chaos in a way of, I had my routine and how I lived my life, especially, and it was it was unique, but it was mine, right? I lived in my van and every night, and I would read every night, and I would do the same things in the morning. I would go to a coffee shop. Like, I had this normal routine, and now my routine is chaos, and I've been struggling with trying to find my place, especially with a newborn and trying to find a job. So I'm really, really prone to routines. I really, really enjoy routines, and it's been hard not having mine. So I'm trying to get back into some of these things. And one of the things I would do is write in my journal. And the journal, I've made a video about it a couple years ago, shared with some people. And the process is just I write 3 things down that I consider accomplishments for the day. I write 3 things down that are 5 things. I think it's for 5 things. 5 things that I've accomplished, 5 accomplishments, 5 things I'm grateful for, and then 5 things that I intend to do the next day. And I just used a lined notebook, a really small notebook that I started buying when I started buying these things when I was a server for Chili's. You can believe that. And for some reason, I always kept one, and I had one around. Eventually, I started writing it and using them as little notebooks for keeping track of things like my weight or waist measurements or things like that. And I just found these things convenient. And when I started a gratitude journal, when I first started this process, I would just write down the 5 things that I'm grateful for. That evolved into writing 5 things, 5 accomplishments, and also 5 things that I'm going to do the next day. And this is a very effective tool, a very effective process. I can notice changes in my life when I do these things, when I use this journal. But what I'm trying to do is create a 30-day journal with, of course, all the lines. If you want to do this process, by all means, go to Target, pick out the little, I don't know what it is, a 6x4 notebook, whatever the measurements is. And then they'll have right on there, it'll have about 15 lines on it. And it'll be perfect. Maybe like 18 lines on it, and it'll be perfect. And you can use that, and it won't cost you any money. You don't have to buy this book. But I know that I bought a journal on Amazon, and it had like a daily quote, and it had gratitude list, things you're grateful for. And every day was kind of like a little workbook. Every day was the same thing. It wasn't actually a journal where you sit down and write. It was like a little workbook, and they called it a journal. And I thought this was cool because I feel like I need something better than and I did that for several years. I used that just plain lined notebook for years, but I feel like I need something to specifically have a place to put the date, specifically have lines for the things I'm grateful for. And in a 30-day notebook or 30-day book, I can hear my coffee machine beeping and it's going off. As in, the coffee is going to be cold by the time I get done here. Speaking of coffee, so I feel strongly that I need some type of actually structured book journal to write in. And so I bought this one. I won't say the name of it. And I started working in it, and I realized that I didn't like it. I realized, and this is something that I've noticed in my life, that if I take a class, whether it be yoga or something, and I start disagreeing with the teacher and wanting more out of it, it's time for me to move on. And so what I noticed with that journal, that there was things I didn't like, things I didn't agree, and things that I wish I had. And that gave me the idea. I go, I know what I want in my daily journal. Why don't I just make it? And so I started writing these, what I intend to be one page motivation, 1 page life lessons. Like, instead of entire articles, I'm trying to condense them down into a few paragraphs and get that on 1 page. So what I intend is that when you open this journal, on the right side, because it's always easier to write, and I noticed this when I was using this journal that I bought, writing on the left side of the page of the open book was difficult, because it wasn't a spiral notebook. It was just a bound, glued book, and it's hard to write on the left hand side. So on the left hand side of my journal, we'll have these motivational life lesson stories that I'm writing, and then on the right will be the sections to write down the things that I'm going to have. And so on the right will have your list your accomplishments, list your gratitude, list your accomplishments or a task for the next day. Those are all standards, things I've been using for a long time. But the next thing, I'm going to add a fourth one, I think. And that fourth one is going to be affirmations. Write down 5 affirmations because they're so effective. It's incredible. And I need them back in my life. And I need something to tell me to write them down every day. So, and what I'll do, the introduction of the book, I'll make an introduction. I'll express why I think gratitude is important. I'll express why I think accomplishments are important, and writing down your to-do, and then the importance of affirmations, which I've been saying over and over again for years, whether it's a YouTube video, whether it's a podcast, or whether it's articles. I keep talking about affirmations. As silly as they seem, I'll be son of a gun if they don't work. And everything in life that I has come from them. So I've talked a lot about my journal and what I'm making. And so on the left-hand side, these life lessons that I talk about, there are things that they're kind of, most of them are for me. Most of them are things that I've learned. And I could be talking to myself for majority of these. There are a few where I would say, like, I think people should, or I think you should, but most of them are me, and most of them have my experiences and what I've learned and what I've gone through and the mistakes that I've made, or things that I've observed in my life. And I want to have 30 of them because I want to have a 30-day journal, and I've been writing these little things. And what I came up with the other day was something that I've been believing in for a long time, and and I got it from Zig Ziglar first. Okay, Zig Ziglar says, I don't know if he has an exact quote, but he says, once you learn the fundamentals, that frees your mind up to concentrate on creativity. Right? So what I wrote is learn the fundamentals so that you can concentrate on creativity. That's not a Zig Ziglar quote. I don't know the exact quote, or if he ever had something that said he had like a summary, or he didn't exactly have one of his famous quotes that related to this, but it always made an impression on me. And he gave an example of, like, who was the example he gave? I mean, because Zig Ziglar is older, and he started his motivational speaking career a long time ago. So when he referenced people, he referenced people from that time. And so I think he may have been talking about maybe Dr. J, Julius Erving, maybe Magic Johnson. And eventually he did kind of talk about Shaquille O'Neal. But he talked about how basketball players, for example, they don't have to think about how to dribble. Right? It's ingrained in their brain, and they don't have to think about, oh, this is how you push down and the ball's going to bounce back up. Or it's just they learn the fundamentals over and over and over and over and over again, or repeated them over and over and over again, that they don't have to think about those things. Now, if you're a beginner, you do, right? And you have to utilize your mind and your energy on these basic things in order to that you need to accomplish in order to get to the next step. Whereas if you have been practicing them for years, you don't have to think about that, and then your mind is free to be creative. So I gave an example of this as an HVAC instructor. I taught the fundamentals of electricity, and we worked 2 shifts a day. And so when I started, I taught the fundamentals of electricity on one shift and the fundamentals of refrigeration on the other shift. And the courses were 10 weeks long. After 10 weeks, the shift switched, and I would teach whatever I was teaching in the morning, I now taught at night, and whatever I taught at night, I now teach in the morning. So every 10 weeks, I started going over the fundamentals. I started teaching the fundamentals of refrigeration, the fundamentals of electricity, and then 10 weeks would come, and I start over again. And I did that over and over and over again for 4 years. I enjoyed teaching the fundamentals. They put you in there if you're new, but I think that I did such a good job. I got good reviews, and I don't know what the circumstances were that they didn't want me, or maybe the guys teaching advanced classes wanted to stay teaching advanced, but I did not mind teaching the fundamentals. So I did it for 4 years straight, every 10 weeks, starting over again. And what that did is ingrain the fundamentals into my head, the fundamentals of refrigeration, the fundamentals of electricity, to the point where I was eventually, I didn't need notes. I didn't need to read the slides. I didn't need anything. I could grade tests by just looking at them. I knew all the answers. I never had to, and that's just through repetition, by teaching and saying these words and giving these lessons over and over again. The fundamentals of HVAC were ingrained in my subconscious, and I never had to think about them. So when that part of my career ended, when teaching ended, and I ended up back in the field, I started realizing, like, wow, I can fix air conditioners a lot better. I can figure things out. I can read wire diagrams a lot better. I can troubleshoot. And it was all because my mind was free, because now I can be creative. And you don't think of being creative in being a wrench turner and being creative. When it comes to problem solving, yeah, that's creativity. You're trying to figure out what's wrong, and when you don't have to think about the fundamentals, you're free to bring in any aspect, to look in any direction, and to be creative to figure out what is wrong. And when I went out in the field after teaching for 4 years and went back into the field, I was an outstanding HVAC tech, and still am, believe it or not. And that is this example. Learn the fundamentals, and so that you can use your creativity. So I'm writing this in a little, couple hundred words here. Let me see, 216 words, right? And I'm thinking, okay, cool. But as I'm writing it, I write, you cannot fully utilize, when you don't have to think about the basics, your mind is free to concentrate on creativity. And creativity is what sets you above the rest. Now, this is the whole reason why I'm making this podcast, because when I wrote these words, I was like, ding. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I never really even thought about it. It's your creativity that sets you above the rest. It's what makes your performance unique, right? It's your gift. Everybody has to and can learn the fundamentals, right? Let's take basketball. All right, everybody can learn how to dribble. Everybody can learn how to dribble between their legs. Everybody can learn how to do the 3-pointer. Everybody can learn how to do a hook shot. Those are the fundamentals. You learn those things. You get 10 people, you train them all how to do that. They'll do it all exactly the same up until a certain point. What makes them different, right? What makes the person be able to do a no-look pass, or behind the back, or do their hook shot under pressure, or make their 3-pointer under, like what makes that person stand out is that they're going to do it their way, that they're going to be allowed to be creative and accomplish their task using their own individual gift. And that's the difference, right? If you want to make salsa, the fundamentals, this is how you chop up a tomato. This is how you chop an onion. This is how you pan roast the peppers. Like, those are fundamentals. Everybody knows how to do it. What's going to make the salsa taste different is your own twist, your own creativity. What are you going to do different than everybody else? Because you're you. No other reason, but because you're you. Some people talk about running a business and being entrepreneurs, and then they get discouraged. Like, oh, there's already a business that does this thing. But what people have said is, you only have to do run this business, or your version of the business, 10% better than the other person, 15% better than the other person. That 10% is your individual creativity. It's what you have that the other person doesn't. And in order to get to that, you're unique. In order to display that. One more analogy. I like to write magical realism. I have influenced by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Luis Alberto Urrea, and then Julio Alvarez, Isabel Allende. They all influence me. They are all better writers than me. What's the difference is that none of those books that they have published are written by me. None of them have my taste, flavor, a little bit of extra. None of them have my own individual creativity, because it's my creativity. It's different than theirs. And that's what makes all of us different. That's what makes all of us excel, to stand out a little bit more. That little bit, that 10% difference is our creativity. And without knowing the fundamentals, without getting those out of the way, our creativity cannot come out until they are done. This is why you hear the 10,000 hour rule. And that's 10,000 hours. I don't know why. I live in the most suburbs of suburbs. I live in West County, St. Louis. This is like the white flight, the height of white flight. Like, these people come out here. Like, I used to live in the city and I didn't hear sirens this much. For some reason, the paramedics and the fire department go down this street the most. And I don't get it. Anyways, what I'm saying, I wrote it, and I'll recap before I got distracted. Before you can fully shine at a task, you have to know the fundamentals. You have to have the fundamentals engraved in your subconscious, freeing up your conscious mind to focus on your creativity. This blows my mind. Now I realize the difference. Oh, the 10,000 hours. That's 10,000 hours of fundamentals. Get that ingrained in your brain. Get that repeated over and over again for hours and hours and hours, and for years and for years and for years, so that it's no longer an issue, and you can then utilize your own creativity, put your own twist on it, add your own flavor, add your own style, and that's what's going to make you stand out. That's the difference between this guy and yours, is your creativity. And in order to allow it, in order to release it, you have to know the fundamentals. Folks, I am out of breath. I'm talking so much. I need to get back in shape. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've gained a lot of weight since since my wife's pregnancy, but specifically, I think since I quit chewing tobacco. To tell you the truth, I hid that from a lot of people for a long time, but I was an avid tobacco user. And I think when I finally quit, I kind of compensated with sweets. Chain. Doing all this talking, I really need to get in shape again. I was in great shape just not too long ago, and it's affecting my health, so I need to get on it. But the baby kind of I'll put a damper on things. Not a damper, but a damper on my physical activity, which maybe is just an excuse. But check me out on Twitter, David Soto Jr., and at David Soto Jr., and find me on Instagram at David Soto Jr. That's the social media platforms where I'm most active. Facebook, David Soto Writes, I think, or something. And my website is David Soto Writes. I'm trying to get back on that. I'm working on shutting down my old website, The Primitive View. I'm no longer that guy. I'm no longer writing health and fitness stuff, although I'm transferring a lot of those articles because people still go to about 3 articles in particular and almost every day. So I'm trying to put links to those articles on Medium. I've moved them over to Medium and put links there. But I just got done with talking to GoDaddy today, and I will be shutting that website down. So the Primitive View will be gone. What I may replace it with is Pass Your PT Test website. Pass Your PT Test is my best-selling book. I want to be known for writing beautiful love stories, beautiful magical realism stories. But I'm not there yet. What I am selling almost every day is this book called Pass Your PT Test. And so I'm thinking that I need to start a website dedicated to that to help me boost sales, even though they sell like hotcakes already. So Primitive View might be gone. Pass Your PT Test may be coming up. That's going to be a lot of work. But as far as social media goes, at David E. Soto Jr. on Twitter and Instagram. Holler at me. I'll follow you. You follow me. We'll help each other out. We'll talk to each other. Any questions you have, fire them. Oh, fire away. Forewarning, if you follow me on Instagram, you will see a ton of pictures of my kid because I'm in love with him. And I can't stop taking pictures of him and posting them. So I'll do my best. Anything else? I don't think so. Folks, I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you being a listener. That's it. Peace.